Okay, well, you'll have to excuse the very, very long delay. A lot's happened. Quite a lot. So I was preparing a new video a while back. I'd even made some new drawings and background art and whatnot for it. It was about climate change, particularly on the cryosphere. That's all the frozen regions of the world, that mostly the Antarctic ice sheet. It's two ice sheets that was part of the video. Is going to explain the West Antarctic and East Antarctic. And Greenland ice sheet. I was also going to talk a huge amount about sea ice decline in the Arctic, but in the time I was away, kept wanting to add more and more to that video, and on top of that, in the time that I was away, Antarctic sea ice actually reached a record all-time in history low in 2023, I believe. You know, the seasons are flipped, and the southern hemispheres have been in June or July, somewhere, or August, one of those months. All of this got me stuck in a huge negative thought loop, and I'd already had problems before. If my voice sounds different, we'll get to that in a bit. Well, this is actually the first one that I've recorded, not having drinks beforehand. So I'll explain a little bit about that video, and then I'll cut to the main topic. So as I was digging more and more, this is one of my old interests. I've been interested in this as long as I can remember. Antarctica had been like the place I wanted to go to since I was 6 years old. And it just also became too much for one video. I had a huge section that I had even pre-written and partially recorded about the cascading collapses in the Antarctic Peninsula. So it was in 1995, the Larsen A ice shelf collapsed. So as A is the furthest north of the Antarctic Peninsula. Then in 2002, pretty much all of the Larsen B ice shelf collapsed within a tiny fragment. And then it was like in 2016 or 2017, there was a chunk that came off the Larsen C ice shelf that was the size of Rhode Island. In more recent years, even in 2021, on the Greenland ice sheet, rain fell at the summit for the first time that we have records, including ice core records from in the past tens or even 100 millennia. I wanted to make the video, but it became so much to focus on, with all the other stuff I had going on as well. And what's even worse is the news seemed to just follow me, because as we headed into that winter, I live in the Great Lakes region, and we haven't had a good winter in a very long time. At the time, it was in the 50, almost 60 degrees, a lot of time in January, which is fucking ridiculous. I went on a vacation way up north in January of 2024, so just last January. It was tough to convince one of my friends to go along, but we went to Quebec City in the middle of January. We stayed in Hotel de Glace for the night, and actually stayed in the ice hotel, and then we took a 3-hour snowmobile tour across like this huge mountainous roads and whatnot, and it was fucking awesome. A month after getting back, not only did they have an unusually warm winter that it actually impacted their winter festival, which is a big thing for them up there. They had a melting ice castle and whatnot. Now, into the main topic of the video. Since long before all of this channel, even a couple of years, maybe even time frames kind of. A lot's happened, so the time frame's kind of hard to pin down, but it's been like 2.5, 3 years in total that this is going on. I've been a heavy drinker for a long time, including, other than this video, all the other videos that I've recorded on this channel. And, well, that should be no fucking surprise to anybody who watches my videos. If there's any of you still left hopefully not all of you just assume that I'm dead by now, but... So it started off as like a one-off, dumb fun. I also had deep conversations with a couple of my friends. Usually, just my best friend is most able to join. We'd go out after midnight, a couple times out till almost 4 or even past. We'd go to parks at night with only the sodium vapor yellow glow over everything. Fuck around on the swings and pelt each other with snowballs if we were out in the winter and we actually had snow. And sometimes we'd talk about space, and sometimes we'd talk about philosophy and whatnot, and we almost got busted several times, but nothing. We managed to squeak by every time. Around my neighborhood at the time, that up until for most of the time we were there, the police didn't patrol or nothing around there. There's this industrial park that was not far from where I lived at the time, and we'd ride our bicycles out. There's this. It was like this huge panel breaker box for these billboards, and they, for some reason, the whoever's billboards they were, whoever the property owner was, there was a lock there, but they didn't actually block it. So it was like 3:30 or something like that, and we were fucking around, bottle of vodka in hand and whatnot, and we just started flipping the breakers, and we were laughing our asses off, and all the billboards went out. This didn't stay the norm or fun for forever, obviously. It got worse when I started to occasionally get drunk at my computer, sitting in front of the computer screen. And first it was just listening to music occasionally, and mostly watching anime. Sometimes I would just drink slowly, have a few shots spaced over out in like an hour and a half, and obviously it got worse over time, and or beer or whatever I had, and draw for a while, and then once it was, once I'd done something on whatever I was drawing or working on, then I'd just I'd pick out some music to just get fucking wasted to, and just sometimes I'd pass out in my computer chair, and it'd get more frequent, and more and more I started to listen to just more and more doomer music and whatnot, jamming or whatnot, what you would call it, dooming and jamming music while just getting absolutely fucking wasted. Sometimes I'd pass out in my computer chair, and I'd wake up and I'd just continue, and it just I know this isn't really structured all that well, but what can you expect? It felt good to be able to express my dreads and despair, even though all I was staring at was just my 20-year-old computer monitor. And I didn't really start to get hangovers for a while after doing this, but they very quickly started to get worse, and tried to cut back at some point because I realized that this was getting out of hand. Well, it'd been out of hand for a while by this point, and but it was near impossible to sleep. The nightmares, the first couple times I tried to cut back, when I drink less but still drank some, the nightmares were kind of distorted, it almost felt like reality and dream blended a bit. And the worst one was when I tried to go to bed without having anything. I had a dream that it was me and my best friend who we'd do all these drinking trips with, and I'd been invited along to go with his family to this mountainous area that I know that they go to in real life. So this is what made the dream all the much worse. And I don't remember the exact details, but it all felt so real, and as you discontinue to see why. I had in this dream I'd accidentally fucked up in some way that had hurt one of his family members. But in that dream I would go to bed, and it's still in that dream, and then have another dream where it was way worse, where I had actually accidentally killed one of them or something through some dumb accident. I don't remember exactly what it was, but then I'd wake up still in the first dream and still thinking of there's still this ominous dread and whatnot, and then I went back to bed, and then I woke up completely for real, and it took me several seconds to realize afterwards that I'd woken up, that that was just a two-layered dream, because for several seconds after I was thinking about how I was going to make it up to my best friend and his family for fucking up and injuring one of them. So again, I don't remember the details, but it took me several seconds to realize that there was no trip, that never happened. So obviously I gave up after that. That was too much. I don't know if anybody else watching has been through anything like this, but and then you convince yourself, what's the point? I mean, because I saw no future, nothing to look forward to. I hadn't even had a full-time job at that point, and I had my chemistry degree, but it didn't seem like I was getting anywhere, and still I'm not quite not where I want to be either now, as I'm saying this. That and everything in the world going to shit, more or less. And on top of that, over the years preceding and during all of this, I'd slowly come to the realization, in all likelihood, I was going to die alone. And it's a long process to accept something like that. And I mean, there's one thing about knowing it, and there's one thing about fully accepting it. In all likelihood, that's how it's going to be. But at this point, it consumed all my thoughts, and the only way I could anything was by getting drunk and then kind of getting my feelings out in front of my computer screen. And even now, I'm still working on that, but it's a lot better now. Just not an easy thing to accept, but it is what it is. One of my favorites to listen to at this point was I might put the Russian name in here, but it was one of those Russian doomer bands, Death Certificate. And as I continued drinking, eventually get to the point where throughout the day after I woke up and went about my day, as time passed, my anxiety would start to go up and spike and whatnot, and I would start to get jumpy and fidgety a bit, and so I'd have to go home. And sometimes I think by this point I was starting to occasionally get a minor version of the shakes even from time to time at this point, and so I'd have to go home, and the first thing I'd have to do is have a shot or two. And then when I wasn't at home or work or whatnot, when I was hanging out with friends, be it weekend or whatnot, it always had to involve something with drinking or watching stuff, going to bars and whatnot. Just whatever dumb stuff, and still at this point doing the drunk bike rides. And another big factor in this was up until very recently, there's just no excitement in my life, no real thrill in anything. Nothing got my blood pumping at all, and it's still, every time I'd go home, it's still the same empty bed, and well, it still is now, but I guess I've just learned to live with it more. And I still have this feeling of being an immigrant in my own country because of how little I have in common with most other people. And this really got drilled in even more after I started working out with all these regular people, and it seemed like the only things that they cared about talking about was their sports ball team and their kids, and other crap that I don't care to ever have kids. I never want to have kids, and I have no interest in sports at all. So eventually I got to my second big attempt at quitting this. I was tired of letting so much time slip by, because by this point, more and more into my whole night after I did my basic shit when I got home would just be drinking, listen to music. I mean, I tried to pace myself out, but just ended up extending the time that I was drunk. So I mean, it still just ended up being the same or even more drinks than before. And I was tired of getting just spending all that time in front of my computer monitor, not doing anything, or sitting in Lazy Boy I got for free from one of my other friends, and in front of the window watching the watching cars rise and set over the turnpike with my music playing, beer, vodka in hand. And so I decided to start cutting back, and I'd cut back for a bit over several days, but it was continuously getting harder and harder to sleep each day. It was maybe only 4 or 5 days I was successfully able to cut back, and it was only a shot or so that I could be able to cut back each day, and it was tough. And so after the 4th or 5th day or whatever it was, I don't really know, I tried cutting off completely, but my anxiety was spiking extremely hard, and as night wore on, it feels like I was starting to get shakes. So I had 2 shots after that. I was still just trying to relax in front of my computer without drinking anything, just trying to relax and watch anime and whatnot after that. And so several hours later, I tried going to bed. It was already later than I'd normally go to bed, which is normally between 5 and 6. I mean, that's another thing, people didn't notice this, because I already stayed up to that point normally before I started drinking, so nothing seemed odd, and by that. But I was sitting or laying in my bed with I turned on my fan, and I was still incredibly anxious and whatnot, because it had been several hours since I had only those 2 single shots, and the anxiety was still there, and I was starting to hear these distorted circus or band. There's just this weird blend of circus and band noises coming from my fan. It was really freaky, and when I closed my eyes, it was getting worse. And as you can imagine, I gave up after this. I knew that if I was able to even fall asleep at all, I'd probably even have worse nightmares than before. And what was even worse is that the thought that if this was making me start to hear stuff that wasn't there by then, I was wondering if the noises would get worse, turn into voices or something, or worse, that I would start to see stuff. On a side note here, since about midway through this journey, if you call it, I've been doing this stuff called TERT, that I call TERT. It's a shorthand for tert amyl alcohol, 2-methyl-2-butanol, 2-M-2-B. So I used this to so that I didn't have to worry about as many bottles, because this stuff works on the same receptors that alcohol does. It's a GABAergic is what they call it. It's 20 to 30 times more potent than ethanol, and it lasts 8 to 12 hours. It's with this, I mean, there's none of the classic hangover symptoms, but it still has all the same withdrawal symptoms as alcohol, because it still acts on the same receptors. The effects are a bit different, but I'm not going to go into that. It's not really important for this video. I just thought I'd share this because it's another thing, like, to give you some concept of how far deep into this I'd fallen. So as I came to rely more on this TERT, as I couldn't throw out, like I just said, I couldn't throw out the bottles quick enough, and it seemed more and more like towards the end of this journey, I was like, even during the day, I'd have some level of brain fog for a good portion of the day when I wasn't drinking even, which was irritating me and make it harder for me to be able to get stuff done. So eventually, after a couple of days or some more of that, I decided that I was just going to quit cold turkey and just have to deal with whatever effects. And I had 2 seizures, and I had to stay 4 days in the hospital. Actually can't drive a motor vehicle for another 4.5 months now because of that. It's a thing with well, if you have a seizure, you can't drive a motor vehicle for 6 months after. You have to be seizure free for 6 months, just in case it's something else. So I've finally been clean of it for a bit over a month and a half. Haven't had a drop since then. I've just been trying more to focus on what I can help, what I know that I can improve, and finally free of all of that. Still a lot to go. That snowmobile ride in Quebec City, that Quebec City trip was a big turning point for me. Well, 1 or 2 big turning points, I would say, towards motivating me to get out of this. And that snowmobile ride actually was one of the first things that I'd done, like, basically ever, that actually gave me that sense of thrill and enjoyment that I guess it seems obvious in retrospect that that's what I'd like, because, I mean, that's what I would have wanted in a partner if I could find a woman who was into all that stuff. I don't want to go on another tangent, God damn it. I already made a video on this, actually more than one, but that snowmobile ride, yeah, that inspired me later on towards the end of my journey, 6 months or less, 6 months or whatever it was, to go out and get a dirt bike. First time I'd ever sat on one was when I went to the store to get one. I should say dealership more accurately, but another thing that should have seemed obvious is that a couple times when I was in my car driving and whatnot, and it was the last road to work, and it's in 25 with a double yellow, but traffic was really low because I worked second shift, and I wanted to go fast, and I'd illegally pass people going 3 times the speed limit sometimes more than one car. Just check and see if there was anybody around who's gonna, any obvious police cars or whatnot, and see if anybody was coming the other way, and I'd just fucking do it. And I'd take the final curve at 50, and there was a time that when I'd come home one day, and I was like, I don't want to just start drinking right away. I want to do something more exciting. It may have been a bit after the snowmobile ride, but several months at least before I got the dirt bike, probably 6 months or more. But so I decided to go for a quick drive. I got on the turnpike. I was going 110, 115, and I sat out in the neighborhood where I used to live. I call it the old neighborhood now. Watch the trains go by from my car a bit, and I get back on the turnpike, again going 110, 115 the whole way, and then I get onto my shitty country road where, there's just a ditch on both sides, and I stared myself like, you won't do it, as I slammed on the goddamn gas pedal, and at dead of night going 110, 115 down my home road, too. Yeah. And getting the dirt bike was a very nice thing. I'll have to wait again to be able to take it out again. It's winter right now. It's not the optimal weather to ride it anyway. So I slowly started to ease in, and there's one thing in like understanding, knowing like the statistics and whatnot, that in all likelihood you're going to be alone for life, single for life. But there's another thing, and by accepting that, I don't just mean knowing it. I mean like fully accepting it as just kind of like a net loss and focusing on what you can do, what else you can do in life. I know people say, "Oh, it's not certain. You blah blah blah. You can still try this or that." And I was so goddamn sick, and I'm so goddamn through with fucking dragging that anchor around. I'm not doing it anymore. Because I know when people say, "Oh, you can't know for certain," well, I can know I can know with pretty fucking high confidence, though. Okay, maybe fucking lottery odds somewhere around there. I'm somewhere around there, but I'm not gonna fucking bet on that. Lottery's just a tax on fucking stupid people anyway. Shit happens, people die of cancer, hurricanes happen, bombs fall, people get fucking struck by lightning, and some people die alone. And there's relatively short, in the grand scheme of things, time that since I quit. I felt a lot more productive. One of the big things was that time I felt like it was speeding up more, but I feel like it's still going too faster than I'd like it to, but now it feels it's not going as fast as it was. I do feel more productive. I've gotten a lot more of gotten a lot more drawing done. I've gotten a lot more 3D modeling done that actually looks good as well. I make my own coins is one of my things. I draw the design, then I use that to 3D sculpt in Blender, and I resin print the coins, and then I do make sand molds of them and make them in metal. Copper alloys, silver's one of my big ones too. Like making them in silver. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, in the next couple months, taking the dirt bike out as much as I fucking can, because the last time I got to take it out, I was finally good enough to take it into fifth gear over this huge series of bumps, and I was fucking flying in the air, and coming down hard, and just felt so fucking good, and I actually felt satisfied, like it actually lived all the times that I'd went out riding. And when I'm like that, I'd landed, and the suspension went down, and I bashed because I was only wearing work boots. I don't have actual riding boots yet, but hit part of my shin against against part of the side of the bike. I hit part of my shin against part of the side of my bike, still upright, still moving, and I felt something wet. I didn't know if it was just mud or blood. It turned out to be mud, but I didn't, I didn't feel shit. I just felt something wet. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't care. I'm just like, well, I kept riding, and any time that I've gotten bruised or anything doing this, I just don't really care. It doesn't even really hurt. Well, it doesn't hurt until after. That's at least. Yeah. Well, I might do some videos in the metal casting aspect. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it really fit with the channel, but I don't know. I've got other topics too I wanted to talk about my early childhood when I lived in Mississippi. I do want to do videos on the whole decimation of the cryosphere with global warming, climate change. That's gonna have to probably be more than one video. I know this doesn't sound like my usual stuff, but I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to piece all of this together, especially when I haven't made a video in so long. Hope my voice doesn't sound too bland or anything from this. Well, this has been No Offense signing off, and hopefully have more content for you soon. Well, if you did stick around and listen to the whole video, thanks for sticking around.